On the day I was hospitalized to maintain my pregnancy, Mario's junior female apprentice who was suffering from cancer called him 108 times. I asked him if he wasn't going to answer it. Mario replied impatiently, "She only knows how to call me all day long. Doesn't she have any other relatives? It's so annoying." Later, his junior female apprentice, wearing a white dress, sat on the rooftop of the hospital and posted a WeChat Moments update. With the caption, "If I jump down from here, will I turn into a butterfly in my next life? Then I won't be hated by everyone." Mario glanced at that Moments update and sneered, "She wants to turn into a butterfly like that? Wishful thinking." But after saying that, he obviously became restless. Finally, he left in a hurry and didn't come back all night. That night, I had a massive hemorrhage and was rushed to the emergency room. The nurse asked me if I wanted to maintain the pregnancy. I stared at the empty space beside me and replied calmly, "No." When I regained consciousness after anesthesia, it was already the next afternoon. I raised my hand and gently touched my now flat abdomen. The cuff slipped down due to my movement, revealing the back of my hand, which was swollen and bruised. I had been most afraid of injections since I was a child. But for the sake of this child with Mario, I had been poked with needles more than 300 times. However, from the moment I was rushed into the operating room due to massive hemorrhage last night until now, a total of 27 hours had passed. Mario never showed up again. The long unheard notification sound rang on the mobile phone on the bedside cabinet. It was Mario. But the message he sent wasn't to inquire about the health of me and the child. Instead, it said, "Elias caught a fever after being exposed to the wind on the rooftop last night. Her parents are out of town, and her brother doesn't care about her. I had no choice but to take care of her temporarily. It's such a hassle." He said it was a hassle, but there was a bit of tenderness in his tone that he himself didn't even notice. I looked at the night avatar he had changed to I don't know when and replied calmly, "Okay." I exited the chat box and clicked into the Moments. Elias had posted a new Moments update. The picture was of her left hand with an 4 drip, and the caption read, "You said you were my salvation." And her avatar had been changed to that of a princess being guarded by a knight. Inadvertently, a pair of big hands with distinct knuckles were shown in the upper left corner of the picture. The owner of the big hands was using the warmth of his palm to warm up the cold 4 drip tube for her. I recognized those hands as Mario's, because there was a small scar on the second joint of his right index finger, which was left when he stood up for me to teach those bullies who bullied me in high school. But in the photo, his ring finger, which originally had a wedding ring, was bare, with only a light-colored mark left. A faint sneer tugged at the corners of my mouth. I raised my hand and commented on this Moments update, "A perfect match." Then I clicked on my own avatar and changed the original wedding photo with Mario to the single photo of myself before I accepted Mario's confession. Less than half a minute later, that Moments update was deleted by Elias. Mario also called. As soon as he opened his mouth, he said, "Lucia, didn't I explain it to you? Elias's family isn't around, and she's seriously ill. I'm just taking care of her as her senior. She's already troublesome enough. Can't you stop being so unreasonable?" Trouble. Mario always liked to refer to Elias as Trouble. Elias was Mario's junior female apprentice. When she first entered the company, Elias didn't know anything. She couldn't even print a document. She was clumsy and always followed Mario around, asking this and that. Mario would always complain to me about his junior female apprentice, saying she was stupid and troublesome. Previously, when he got off work, he would share the interesting things that happened in the company with me. But I don't know since when, all he shared with me was about his junior female apprentice. "Lucia, you don't know. That Elias doesn't even know how to use disposable chopsticks. I really don't know how she grew up." Elias was clumsy again today and printed the documents wrong, which made me look bad in the company's regular meeting. I must tell the HR manager to fire her. Mario always said he would transfer Elias away, but until she got sick, she had always been by his side. And I also watched helplessly as his for Elias changed from troublemaker to little fool. Now, what else don't I understand? I listened calmly, with no desire to refute at all, and replied with a light laugh, yeah, I understand. Mario didn't expect me to be so magnanimous. He thought I was being sulky, and his tough tone softened. Don't you want to eat the crab roe buns from Chinsuji? I'll go buy some later. Be good. Before he could finish speaking, Elias's sobbing interrupted him. Senior, the blood is flowing back. With just one sentence, she attracted all of Mario's attention, only to hear Mario's tone on the other end of the phone suddenly become flustered. Why didn't you call me earlier? Does it hurt? Elias sobbed softly and said it didn't hurt. On the other side, Mario seemed extremely distressed and said in a reproachful tone, you didn't even know to call the nurse quickly when the blood was flowing back. You're so stupid. Sorry, Senior. I'm causing you trouble again. Elias sounded extremely aggrieved. Mario then let out a sigh. It seemed that he put down the phone. What he was saying to Elias, I couldn't hear clearly anymore. But I didn't want to listen anymore either. My stomach, which was already hungry and producing acid reflux, sank a little more. Churning with the nausea from when Mario was showing concern for Elias just now, I had no appetite at all. As soon as I hung up the phone, the nurse pushed the door open and came in. Patient in bed 23, you can be discharged now. But you just had an induced abortion. You should pay attention to getting more bed rest. The nurse said as she pulled out the needle for me. I replied softly. In the taxi on the way home, I forwarded the divorce agreement personally drafted by Mario before our marriage to the lawyer and instructed him, if there are no problems, please print 2 copies. I want to get divorced as soon as possible. The reply from the other side came quickly, okay. To reassure me to marry him, Mario had personally drafted a divorce agreement before our marriage, stating that he would leave the marriage with nothing. As long as he showed any signs of changing his heart, he would give up his company and all his property and leave the marriage with nothing. At that time, Mario's eyes were full of love when he looked at me. He was certain that he would definitely keep his promise to love me. Unfortunately, promises change in an instant. It was already 6 o'clock in the evening when I got home. The temperature in autumn wasn't low, but the food on the dining table from 2 days ago had already gone bad and emitted a foul sour smell. It seemed that Mario hadn't been home in the past 2 days. I forced myself to take a bath. Then my lower abdomen started to hurt again. I quickly swallowed some painkillers and went to sleep in the second bedroom. In the middle of the night, the front door was opened. The person who came in rushed past the master bedroom and then arrived at the door of the second bedroom. The next second, bang. The door of the second bedroom was kicked open. I was awakened from a nightmare. The light in the second bedroom was suddenly turned on, and then I saw Mario's face with furrowed brows. Lucia, I'm your husband. Why did you leave the hospital without telling me? When I finally got used to the light and opened my eyes, I saw Mario standing at the bedroom door, panting, with a bag of crab roe buns in his hand. He had a cold look in his eyes, and his eyes looking at me were full of accusations. And Elias was hiding behind him, wearing a large men's hoodie. Her small face under the straight black hair was pale and pretty. There were no long pants under Elias's hoodie, and her pair of fair and slender legs were quite noticeable. I recognized that hoodie. It was the birthday present I gave Mario this year. Ironically, he told me a month ago that he had lost this piece of clothing. Obviously, Mario didn't notice that another of his lies had been exposed by himself. He threw the crab roe buns in his hand hard at me. I didn't have time to dodge, and the cold and greasy vinegar was spilled all over me. Mario was probably very angry and preemptively accused me, leaving the hospital without telling me. Do you know that the doctor said your pregnancy was unstable and that you could have a miscarriage at any time if you left the hospital? Lucia, you're not young anymore. Can't you be more mature? Do you know that I've been looking for you for half an hour? Is it so difficult to tell me when you leave the hospital? Mario's every sentence was an accusation. I had a calm expression and explained calmly, I wanted to tell you, but you were taking care of Elias. Elias stepped forward at the right time. She looked at me and then gently tugged at Mario's clothes corner, with her small pale face, and said in a low voice, "Senior, did I cause trouble for you and Lucia again? It's not your fault this time." Mario gently comforted Elias and then turned to stare at me, knowing that you were pregnant and wanted to eat crab roe buns. After Elias finished her 4-drip, I rushed to buy them for you immediately. But when I got to the hospital, the nurse told me that you had already been discharged. I've said it already. Elias is sick, and her family doesn't care about her. I'm just helping her as her senior. Is it interesting for you to make a fuss with me like this? He thought that I was making a fuss with him because he went to take care of Elias, so I didn't notify him and left the hospital without a word. It seemed that I should explain to him, but at this moment, I didn't want to say anything to him. I looked at Elias beside him and said, "Isn't your junior female apprentice seriously ill? Why don't you let her stay in the hospital to recover properly? What are you bringing her back here for?" Mario was suddenly stunned, as if he didn't expect me to change the topic so quickly. He twisted his face, which didn't look good, and explained, "Her family doesn't care about her. It's inconvenient for me to take care of her alone in the hospital, so I brought her back." Elias, with her pale small face, quickly said, "Sorry, Lucia. If I'm causing you trouble, I'll leave right away." Before I could speak, Mario interrupted, "You'll stay here for now. You don't need Lucia's permission." It seemed that he was retaliating against me for leaving the hospital without his permission, so he told Elias that she could stay in my house without my permission. After thinking about it, I looked into Mario's somewhat cold eyes and said, "The guest room at home hasn't been cleaned for a long time. How about I give up the master bedroom for Elias to live in?" I was clearly speaking seriously and sincerely, but when it reached Mario's ears, it completely turned into sarcasm. He suddenly became furious, with a distorted expression. "I'll say it again. Elias and I are just senior and junior. It's not as filthy as you think. She's stupid and her family isn't around. As her senior, what's wrong with me taking care of her? Lucia, I used to think you were very magnanimous. Now it seems that you're just like those jealous women." He looked at me with disappointment all over his face, as if I had done something unforgivable. "I don't understand. I just wanted to offer the master bedroom to Elias to stay in. How could it be considered filthy or that I was being jealous?" At the right moment, Elias tugged at Mario's clothes corner again and said, "Senior, if it's inconvenient, then forget it. If I cause you and Lucia to be unhappy because of me, I'll never forgive myself for the rest of my life." After saying that, Elias turned to leave. But Mario immediately stopped her. "Our relationship is innocent. If you leave now, it'll really be hard to explain. As for Lucia, since she's offering the master bedroom for you to stay in, then you just stay here obediently." "What about Lucia?" Elias gave me a puzzled look. Mario sneered, "She can go and live wherever she likes." With that, Mario took Elias by the hand and turned to leave. I stood there, only feeling a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. After all, there was no place for me in this family anymore. I found an apartment outside. After that night, I didn't see Mario for many days. However, my lawyer friend sent me the divorce agreement. After confirming that there were no problems, I asked her to send it to Mario for me. After that, it was like the message had fallen into a bottomless sea. Until one morning, I received a call from Mario's assistant. "Miss Lucia, President Mario said that he has already communicated with the hospital. Your baby can be delivered by cesarean section in another week. Please pack your maternity bag as soon as possible on your end." He then added, "President Mario said that he has seen the divorce agreement. It's really beneath you to be jealous of a younger girl than you. Since marrying President Mario, he has been taking care of you all the time. Moreover, you haven't worked since getting married. You've been using President Mario's card for everything you buy and use. As long as you go and apologize to President Mario, this matter will be over. But if you insist on being stubborn and having a tiff with President Mario won't be responsible for your living expenses in the future." I let out a light laugh. Is that what Mario told you? Mario's assistant was stunned for a moment, and then confirmed, yes. Got it. Mario still thought that I was still pregnant with his child and even instructed his assistant to ask me to go to the hospital for a cesarean section. But the child was already gone on the day he left me to take care of Elias. I didn't explain it to the assistant and just hung up the phone on my own. After hanging up the phone, I didn't go to find Mario. Instead, I ate and slept regularly, waiting quietly for a week to pass. Early that morning, I changed into a long dress and went to the hospital. Mario's assistant had already arranged a car to wait for me downstairs. I held the couple ceramic dolls that Mario had personally made when he confessed his love to me in my arms, covering my flat abdomen. It was half an hour later when I arrived at the inpatient department of the hospital. After so many days, I finally saw Mario. Pushing open the door of the ward, I happened to see Mario picking fish bones for Elias. Seeing me appear, Elias shrank and hid in Mario's arms as if she was extremely afraid of me. I didn't know why Elias was here. Mario seemed to see what I was thinking and explained, Elias just finished chemotherapy and her resistance is weak. She caught a cold because she got chilled a couple of days ago, so I sent her to the hospital. Okay. I replied calmly. Mario didn't notice the change in my emotions. Instead, he continued on his own, I've already signed the consent form for your cesarean section. The doctor will push you in and send you to the operating room soon. Speaking of this, Mario deliberately paused. He walked up to me as if nothing had happened and coaxed me, after the baby is born, you'll still be Mario's wife, the mother of the baby. Don't be jealous and have a tiff with me over trifles in the future, okay? With that, Mario was about to call the doctor in to push me into the operating room without waiting for my answer. I interrupted Mario. No need. I'm here just to tell you, Mario, that I don't need a cesarean section anymore. Lucia, what do you mean? Mario asked with a furrowed brow. The next second, in his astonished expression, I let go of the ceramic dolls in my arms. The cute white couple dolls were instantly smashed to pieces. Mario's face, which had been relatively calm before, turned pitch black the moment he witnessed this scene. He gritted his back teeth and looked up, but froze instantly when he saw my flat abdomen, and even his tone of questioning me changed. Your abdomen? Where's our baby? Dead, I said. After I finished speaking, the ward fell into a deathly silence. Mario couldn't believe it and said, You aborted our baby just to be angry with me? Hearing these words, I just felt it was ironic. I just gave him a scornful laugh and didn't say anything. However, Elias, with a pale face and a crying voice, spoke up for me, Senior, don't blame Lucia anymore. She must have done this because she was jealous. It's all my fault. I caused such a big conflict between you two. She was shaking all over from crying, I killed the baby. Senior, if you want to blame someone, blame me. It's all because of my illness. If I weren't sick, you wouldn't have to take care of me. How could it be your fault? Don't overthink it. A look of heartache flashed in Mario's eyes as he coaxed her in a low voice. When he looked up at me again, his eyes were ice cold. Lucia. To be jealous of Elias, to take revenge on me, you even didn't hesitate to harm our baby. I've spoiled you too much. His expression gradually froze into frost. My silent silence made Mario think that he had the upper hand. He continued, Take good care of your body. You can get pregnant again. But if you're still so jealous next time, I might have to reconsider your position as Mrs. Mario was threatening me. But I'm not a baby-making machine. I can't get pregnant just because he says so. Originally, my body wasn't in good condition. For the sake of getting pregnant, my body had already been worn out. I can't get pregnant anymore, Mario. The doctor told me on the day of the miscarriage that my uterine wall is thin. After this miscarriage, I probably won't be able to get pregnant again. After I finished speaking, Mario was visibly shocked. How could it be? Lucia, just to make me angry that I only took care of Elias and didn't care about you. Could you even come up with such a lie? I was just about to present the evidence. At this time, The attending doctor who had personally performed the induction of labor for me pushed the door open and came in. He was stunned when he heard this. "President Mario, your wife probably can't have a cesarean section today. As far as I know, she had a miscarriage last time. Moreover, Miss Lucia's uterine wall is thin and it'll be difficult for her to get pregnant in the future." Mario was shocked again when he heard this. However, he quickly recovered. Looking at me with a sneer on his face, "Oh, Lucia, you're really something. You even bribed the doctor?" Mario didn't believe it at all. He didn't even look at the doctor but just stared at me with full of sarcasm in his eyes and a contemptuous tone. "Do you think I'll believe you just because you get an outsider to act with you? Alright, Lucia, have you had enough of your tantrum? You just want me to never see Elias again and stop taking care of her. You win, okay?" He sounded so indignant, but the doctor's expression on his face was rather. The doctor handed Mario the CT scan of my operation that day and explained, because Miss Lucia's condition was quite complicated, we recorded the operation video at that time. After saying that, he took out his phone and started playing it. Mario subconsciously wanted to refuse, but he was stunned when he saw the content of the video. What the doctor said next pushed him completely into the abyss. "Mr. Mario, Miss Lucia had a massive hemorrhage on the day of maintaining her pregnancy. The baby had no heartbeat before the induction of labor. Miss Lucia was given 3 critical illness notices that night due to the massive hemorrhage. Didn't you know as a family member?" Of course he knew. It was just that when the nurse called him on my phone, he hung up. The reason was, "Lucia, stop making a fuss. Elias is asleep." The brilliant sunlight outside the window shone into the room through the glass window. But Mario shivered from the cold. His handsome face seemed to be covered with a layer of gray, looking hazy and almost broken from sadness. I lowered my eyes, a hint of sarcasm flashing in them. I took out the divorce agreement that I had prepared long ago and handed it to him. "Sign the agreement. Let's find a time to go and get the divorce certificate." Mario, with a pale face, refused to take the divorce agreement. He was like a child, suddenly admitting his mistake to me. "Baby, I'm wrong." He staggered towards me, his eyes full of heartache. "Does it hurt?" I lowered my eyes and didn't say anything. I took a step back to keep a distance from him. "It has nothing to do with you. See you at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 o'clock in the morning the day after tomorrow." After saying that, I turned and left. "Baby, don't go." Mario wanted to run after me, but Elias pulled out the needle and ran out of bed, trying to hug him from behind. "Senior, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I'm just a troublemaker. If it weren't for me, you and Lucia wouldn't be like this now." But Mario pushed her away mercilessly. "Don't touch me." Elias, with a pale face, looked at Mario with tears streaming down her face. "Senior, it's all my fault. I made Lucia misunderstand you. Lucia, I'm sorry. I apologize to you." She was about to kowtow to me, but she blocked Mario who was trying to stop me. Mario was blocked and was a bit angry. He pushed Elias away roughly. "Don't make a mess." Elias screamed and hit the wall, looking at Mario with eyes full of fear and shrinking. Mario immediately regretted it. He sighed and comforted the frightened Elias. "Be good. You're still sick. Don't get out of bed barefoot. You'll catch a cold." He was apologizing to me with his mouth, but what he actually cared about was still Elias. Then I turned and left without any hesitation. I watched with a smile as he carried Elias, who was only 3 years younger than me, back to the hospital bed. After that day, Mario asked Elias to move out of our house. It seemed that he finally remembered to keep a sense of boundaries with Elias, but I didn't care anymore. He sent flowers to the entrance of the apartment I rented every day. Mario transferred all the patients he had originally shown to Elias to me. After I went back to work at the decoration company where I was a supervisor before getting married, he waited downstairs of my apartment regardless of the weather to pick me up and send me to work. It's just that my company was close to the apartment, so I always walked to work. Almost a month passed like this. Even though Mario looked haggard, he was still determined to win me back. However, Elias, who had posted nearly a dozen pitiful moments updates, couldn't sit still anymore. That day was the Mid-Autumn Festival. I was working overtime in the company to draw blueprints. Mario came up with a lot of delicious food. Suddenly, a heavy rainstorm broke out outside the window. After a bolt of lightning, the power in the company went out. The next second, Mario's phone rang. He was originally staring out of the window absent-mindedly. When he saw the name of the caller was Elias, his originally cold and sharp eyes showed a moment of confusion. I knew what was going on. When she first returned to the country to attend a party, Elias had deliberately mentioned it at the dinner table. At that time, she had only been in the company for half a month and ended up being trapped in the elevator with Mario. Because she had been physically abused by her father since childhood, she was extremely afraid of the dark and narrow enclosed spaces. In the end, it was Mario who held the sobbing Elias tightly in his arms and coaxed her for a long time before she calmed down. And since then, every time there was a power outage, Mario would rush to take care of the distraught Elias. Elias's sobbing voice came out, "I'm so scared. My phone is about to run out of battery." Now, Mario's expression was one of resistance, but his fingers subconsciously answered the call. "President Mario, I'm sorry to bother you, but could you please come and save me? I'm trapped in the hospital elevator." After saying that, without waiting for Mario to react, the call was hung up directly. Mario immediately panicked. I had expected this. He had ignored Elias before only because I minded, not because Elias had done anything to hurt him. Now that he hadn't seen her for a month, his anger had long dissipated. "Baby, I'll go and save her first. Her phone is out of battery, so she definitely can't contact the fire brigade either." After saying that, without waiting for my reply, he hurriedly left through the fire escape. And 5 minutes after he left, my phone suddenly received a text message, "Come to my place in half an hour. You'll find out who the senior really loves." I arrived at Elias's doorstep right on time. The door was slightly ajar. Clothes were scattered all over the floor from the living room to the bedroom door. There was still burning incense at the entrance of the living room. However, the smell was too sweet, and it seemed to have an aphrodisiac effect that could make people lose their rationality. I casually used the water from the vase beside me to put out the incense. Then, suppressing my nausea, I opened my phone and walked to the bedroom door. Amid the soft moans inside, I pushed the door open. After making sure that I had recorded the evidence, I said with a light laugh, "Saving someone and ending up in bed?" Mario, with a flushed face and completely naked, was like being hit on the temple by a hammer and suddenly woke up. He hurriedly covered his and Elias's bodies with the quilt and explained with a pale face, "No, baby, listen to me explain. I don't know what happened to me. It was all an accident. Mario, when your mother was forced into severe depression by your father's mistress and jumped off the building, did you also think that your father's affair was an accident?" Mario was completely speechless. Our family and Mario's family had been neighbors for a while. That year, Mario was 16 years old. His professor father had an affair with his own graduate student. His mother had been a housewife who was willing to give up her job for his father. After discovering her husband's affair, she was so traumatized that she couldn't accept it at all. Mario felt sorry for his mother and stayed by her side during that time. However, the mistress got pregnant. In order to take the wife's place, she began to provoke Mario and his mother crazily. During that time, his father didn't come home anymore. He bought a villa outside and lived with the mistress. The mistress, relying on Mario's father's support, sent Mario's mother intimate bed photos of herself and Mario's father every day, along with all kinds of abusive swear words. And Mario's father directly threatened to expose Mario's mother to the media. If she didn't obediently leave the marriage with nothing, he would cut off all financial support for Mario. In despair, Mario's mother committed suicide by jumping off the building. That was the darkest time in Mario's life. Later, because Mario had good grades, the principal of our high school intervened and exempted him from all tuition and miscellaneous fees. This allowed him to finish his sophomore and junior years of high school. At that time, Mario had sworn that he would never be like his scumbag father. But now it seems that betraying the original spouse, genes are powerful. After being caught in bed that day, Mario agreed to the divorce. Not only did he agree to the divorce, but he also gave me all his property. Because half a month after I caught him in bed, Elias's cancer miraculously recovered. Not only did she recover, but she also got pregnant. That night, Mario, drunk, came to me crying and apologizing. Elias is a liar. She was never sick at all. She just wanted to climb into my bed and marry me. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry to you. That day, she also drugged the water she gave me. That's why I shook my head sleepily, stopping him from saying more. It doesn't matter. I think it's disgusting. When Mario learned that there was no possibility of getting back together with me, he collapsed on the ground, completely losing his vitality. The next day, after getting the divorce certificate from the Civil Affairs Bureau, I walked out. Elias, looking smug, exploded on the spot when she learned about the real situation of the property division after getting the marriage certificate with Mario. She refused to accept it no matter what. You bitch. Give me my money back. She screamed and was about to pounce on me to hit me, but Mario grabbed her arm tightly with a cold expression. He stared at Elias gloomily and sneered, "Didn't you say that you loved me for who I am from the beginning to the end? To marry me, you didn't hesitate to spend money to hire someone to forge examination reports, lying that you had a serious illness. You even drugged me to climb into my bed, causing me to divorce my wife. Now I've fulfilled your wish." Elias was furious and cursed, "I don't care. If you don't give me 660,000 yuan as the betrothal gift, I'll abort the baby and then we'll get divorced again. I want to divorce you." Mario, however, laughed like a devil. "Divorce? 3 years ago, I paid off your father's 300,000 yuan gambling debt. Last year, I bought the car for your brother's wedding. At that time, I wasn't your boyfriend. There were IOUs for all these. If you want to divorce me, you'll have to pay me back all of these." At that time, Elias was crying pitifully and threatening to commit suicide. Mario saved her. In front of me, she cried and asked Mario if he could help her pay back the money. She was willing to write an IOU. She originally thought that the IOU would be void once she married Mario. But she didn't expect that a man could be so cold-blooded when he no longer loved. You're shameless. You set me up?" Elias was so angry that her lips were trembling. Mario then completely dropped the act. He sneered, "You ruined my love and marriage. I'll ruin the rest of your life too. This is called reciprocity." With that, he rode away on the shabby second-hand electric scooter he bought before starting his business, leaving Elias standing there. But there was no way. Now Elias could only rely on Mario. After being angry on the spot for just a few minutes, she had to trot after him again. I watched the whole drama unfold and then turned to get into the driver's seat. Chapter 7. After getting divorced from Mario, I had no more troubles and devoted myself entirely to my career. Soon, the small studio with less than 30 people moved into an office building in the city center a year later. On the day of the company's move, many good friends sent flower baskets to celebrate. Among them, there was an unassuming bouquet, which was sent by Mario. Only then did I remember him. Quite a few of our mutual friends knew about what had happened between him and me. At the evening gathering, they began to mock the fate of him and Elias one after another, just as I had expected. Elias's gambler father and her lazy brother, who only knew how to eat and do nothing, now continued to act like vampires. They tried their best to squeeze Elias and Mario dry. They thought that an outstanding entrepreneur like Mario could quickly make a comeback even if he gave all the money in the company to me. However, they didn't expect that. Mario's way of taking revenge was to simply give up and go down with them. He not only learned from Elias's father to drink and gamble but also stopped going out to work. He lay at home all day long, letting Elias support him. When Elias got extremely angry, she would quarrel with him. But Mario no longer felt sorry for her. He hit her and even pushed her down the stairs. Elias was pregnant, and the baby in her womb was lost on the spot. She also injured her uterus and could no longer have children. Elias was furious and ran to the police station, saying that she wanted to sue Mario for domestic violence. She was dragged home by her own father and brother at the entrance of the police station. Because Mario had only one thing to say: if you want a divorce, you have to pay back the money. Those two useless men didn't have any money to pay back. They could only force Elias to compromise. However, the reason Elias had interfered in my relationship with Mario in the first place was to find a rich man to support her. Now not only did she fail to get any money, but she also had to work 3 part-time jobs from dawn to dusk every day to support the family. How could she bear such a disparity? She could only resort to her old tricks again when she was lonely and empty. She hooked up with the small leader at the place where she worked. And all of this was within Mario's expectation. He even personally hinted to that small leader that he didn't mind. This was like a lamb walking into a tiger's den. Soon, Elias became the mistress of that small leader. But what she didn't know was that Mario had already had someone investigate. That small leader had an extremely fierce wife, and he was a live-in son-in-law. Previously, that small leader had also had a mistress. As a result, that mistress got a dirty disease and her life was completely ruined. Elias was sweet-tongued and good at coaxing people. She coaxed the small leader so much that he actually bought her several luxury items. However, the small leader's bank card was to his wife's mobile phone number. Within 3 days, the affair was exposed. When Elias went to work again, happily carrying her luxury items on her back, she was directly blocked at the entrance of the company by the legal wife, who brought some people with her. She was stripped naked on the spot, her hair was shaved off, and 2 words were carved on her face by the legal wife herself. The reason she dared to be so arrogant was that the legal wife had a mental illness and had just been treated in a mental hospital not long ago. And the people she brought were also mentally ill. Elias could only swallow this humiliation. She was beaten until she fainted and was sent to the hospital by kind-hearted colleagues. When she woke up again, she had also gone crazy. When she was sober, she would just stare at the window, mumbling incoherently, "Sorry. I'll never be a mistress again." After she was diagnosed with mental illness, Mario divorced her. The condition was that her father and brother didn't have to pay back the money. After the divorce, no one took care of Elias. When she was discovered again, she had already become the stupid wife of an old bachelor in a mountain village thousands of miles away. And Elias's father was not a good person in the first place. Without Mario's help, his gambling debts could never be paid off. He could only harass his son's family. How could the daughter-in-law bear it? She took the children and went back to her parents' home. The son was already drowning his sorrows in alcohol. He was so angry that he hit the bastard father who came to ask for money with a wine bottle on the spot. As a result, he killed his father. While dealing with his father's body, Elias's brother drove drunk. In order to avoid the traffic police, he panicked and drove the car into the river. He wasn't discovered by passers-by until dawn. Such an ending was really lamentable. I shook my head with a smile and let out a light sigh. I didn't make any comments. It was already 12 o'clock at night when I got home. I rubbed my somewhat tired temples. Just as I was about to take out my keys to open the door, I noticed someone standing under the street lamp in front of my villa. It was Mario, who had lost a lot of weight. He was wearing a cheap blue short-sleeved shirt that had been washed until it was faded. His work pants on the lower half of his body were very dirty. They were covered with dust from the construction site. He had lost a lot of weight, and his skin had been tanned very dark and become rough. After realizing that I had seen him, he subconsciously shrank back, wanting to hide. Then he carefully looked over at me. His cheeks were sunken, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Lucia." He nervously licked his chapped lower lip and congratulated me in a hoarse voice, "You're so amazing now. You'll get better and better." I looked at him silently. After a moment, I nodded, "Thank you. Anything else?" He dejectedly lowered his head and forced a bitter smile. I came to say goodbye to you. I know I've done too many bad things in the past. I'm going to Africa abroad in the future. There's a large demand for construction projects there. I understood, okay, sorry to bother you. Good night. He didn't dare to say anything more and slowly turned to leave. After watching his figure disappear around the corner, I opened the door and went inside. The future is a long journey with many obstacles. He will no longer be a part of my life.